Good evening. The theme we are discussing today is reimagining Tamil Nadu, but as has been mentioned, we may roam a little more widely towards various issues and so on. So, Kamal, we'll start with your film career. Has already mentioned 60 years, 220 films in several languages: Tamil, Hindi, Telugu, Malayalam, and one without any language.
Pushpak. Good evening, everybody. Thank you.
And you're a highly respected actor, an actor's actor, also with a large following. But one thing I've heard, you know my knowledge of films is rather limited, but one thing I've heard, and it's clear, that's a perception widely shared, is in your film roles, you've done a variety of roles, but you're one of those who did not seek to construct an image directed towards a political future. You took on many roles, and not just those roles which would make you look like a virtuous politician in the making. Does that mean you never entertained the idea of politics while doing all these roles?
Thank you. But I have this dubious distinction of being Mr. Ram's guide to cinema. He knows so many things about so many subjects, but this is one subject where I feel proud and not inferior at all. So starting there, let me tell you, you asked me whether I don't have intentions at all. What was my attitude? Did my films evade politics, and why I didn't create an image? What I abhorred was the cliche. So even if I had aims of going into politics, I was not going to do it the regular way.
Yeah, without naming names, we know people who may have done some roles, but suddenly...
Even my choice of roles have been like that. So I do believe in the oblique attack.
Your film, Haram, one of the most significant films made in India, what motivated you to do that thing?
Almost you can say that I stepped into politics with that film. I mean, it is not my business to make a film like that. I was just to make films which will make people happy. I mean, I suddenly wanted to include protein in the diet instead of masala. And I thought it was time. I had this apprehension that we will reach today. I was even worried that we'll reach this day earlier. So that prompted me to make that film at the end of the millennium, 1999, to make a fresh start in my life also. So it's a very strong political film. If you see it now, it makes more sense to people. It made sense to me then, not that I was ahead of time. I was just about in time in making that film. Today, making that film will be difficult.
Yeah, yes, that's precisely the point. Why is India relapsed in that sense? Because that film has a grievous personal loss, somebody who's angry, seeks revenge, wants to assassinate the Mahatma, and then it's turned back and espouses Gandhism. But why is it that after so many lessons have been learned and so many setbacks suffered by India, secular India, democratic India, we are now returning to perhaps the most difficult, challenging phase in, I wouldn't say since independence, because we've had other problems, but in recent decades. Politics of hate, divisiveness, goons breaking into a university with masks. So what?
I think it's like a body and muscle. If you have to keep exercising ethics and social consciousness constantly, otherwise we tend to regress back. Just shutting down electricity in a Big Apple in America brought the worst of behavior in a classy society we all aspire to become. I think it's a constant vigil that we have to keep. That's what I keep saying, that democracy is not infallible. We have to constantly be on the vigil. Otherwise, it is only through democracy a person like Hitler was able to seize power. So we have to keep awake, and we have to keep these dialogues and questions and ask them aloud, and also assess our situation, look around and see what has happened to us. And are we progressing or regressing? These are constant questions we'll have to ask.
Dr. Ambedkar, among others, warned of the strongman syndrome. Beware of strong men, great men, men who are outsized, and so on. Is that a problem? Or simply charismatic leadership?
I think charismatic leadership time is coming to an end. I think we'll have to look for leaders in the people.
We'll come to that for Tamil Nadu a little later. Now, going back to the shaping of your outlook, your worldview, you can say, your father was a remarkable man. Yeah. Tell us a little about it. It's a relatively unknown part of your biography.
He told me that his father realized that he had to buy his son clothes when he was 7 because somebody pointed it out. That man who pointed it out, that it's a big boy now, you must get him clothes, he's running around nude. So that's the kind of, it's not poverty, but it's not also a big family. The man who pointed out that fact later on became my father's father-in-law. Oh. They were friends. So that is the kind of background from which he came, and my father-in-law sort of almost not only took him as a son-in-law, but like a son also. So he educated him. He himself was a lawyer. So put him into the law college. So my father has seen the end of both the spectrums. He's not, but he has moved with all kinds of people. He's so pragmatic, so simple, very humorous. And one quality did not cancel out the other. That you will find humor and passion and pragmatism all in one bundle. That is why his first son was able to talk rational ideas, read books on rationalistic views, and even join the DMK party as an advocate. Yes. While my father was a congressman, and he's not just a follower of Gandhi, but almost a bhakt.
Now, what did he think of your early interest in films? Normally an educated family would have inhibitions.
Very, very strange. I was a late child. He was almost 50 when I was born. So we used to make a joke that they should have actually named me Oops Haasan because they didn't expect the child at all. So Charu Haasan, Chandra Haasan, and then 24 years later, after Charu Haasan, I was born. So the difference between the first brother and the last brother, 24 years. So I think he used me as a good guinea pig for his ideas. What he couldn't do, he taught me music, he couldn't sing, and then he wanted an artist in the family, and he said so, much to the chagrin of my brothers who didn't subscribe to that kind of thought. But he kept pushing it, and somewhere I think probably few advices I adhered to was this, and it stood me in good.
A very progressive man.
Very progressive man, and it sounds like I'm eating the humble pie. We never knew, or I'm pretending, we never knew the casteism, the differences. It's only the world which taught us, not the home. It's usually the other way around when they discreetly instruct the children about what exists around the world.
Let's turn to our state, Tamil Nadu. Reimagining Tamil Nadu. Show cause why Tamil Nadu needs to be reimagined, because if you look at the indicators, Tamil Nadu ranks pretty high. India Today's annual State of the State survey, 2019, Tamil Nadu emerged as the best performing state, best performing big state, looking at all criteria. If you look at the Niti Ayog's India Innovation Index, the latest released, Tamil Nadu follows Karnataka as the state which is most innovative. There are areas where it's relatively backward. For example, Niti Ayog's School Education Quality Index, Tamil Nadu ranks 8 out of 20, quite low, given its other advantages and so on. And then we have a universal public distribution system. We have fairly efficient governance, it appears. We'll come to the other dimension, perhaps number one or number two in India with respect to corruption. But let's...
When we were given a sort of brief on who was going to come here and what they would like this conversation to be, they said, don't forget to add humor in it. And Mr. Ram said, it seems, don't expect humor from me, but do expect wit. But yeah, I think he has offered the humor part. So I think, what else can we do? It's not even a loud laughter, but it's a sad smirk is what I can give for this kind of a joke. Why it has to be reimagined? First, we have to imagine. We have lost our imagination. And there's nothing to be invented. We just have to discover what we are, the synergy that we can produce, this room can produce. We have lost that imagination. So we have to bring that forth. I mean, this hibernation will have to stop. I'm not blaming politicians anymore because we know who we are, who they are, and we now have to realize who we are.
But if this is the state of perhaps one of the most advanced states, what about the rest?
Yeah, that's why this joke is on the country. Yeah. It's a shame on the country if this is the standard. That means we are celebrating mediocrity and even lower. We are trying to raise mediocrity as the highest level. And that's a shame on the country which produce great men, including those in this room. So it's such an insult to us. We must take umbrage.
What explains the dominance of the Dravidian movement in its various avatars, offshoots, and so on in this state? And why did the so-called national parties, I use the word so-called advisedly, because that's their claim. But what do you think explains this? Because now you're entered politics, you must have done your homework.
I think that the Dravidian movement, you know the history, I mean, most of us know. In Tamil, we say it's Kalathin Katayam, need of the hour. Yeah. If Mr. Annadurai has not been born, Mr. Periyar was not there still would have been a moment. We don't know when it would have borne fruit, but it was need of the hour. Yes. Because it was not an inclusive politics. It was an exclusive politics. So people were left out and they gathered together and they found a small percentage, like it happens around the world, even in fiscal matters, 2% control the rest. So they wanted to change it. So it was a need of the hour. That's why my brother, born to a congressman, joined DMK. It was a need of the hour. I mean, it doesn't matter. Personalities didn't matter. And I think I spoke once and I speak again in another great forum. I think Murasuli function I spoke. You cannot remove Dravidam from the map. The reason is that the so-called, it's pan-Indian, pan-national, this Dravidianism as we call it. I mean, archaeologists will give me better reason and support as to why I say it. So this is just a brand, a name, an umbrella under which we can sit. It will be there. Who takes it forward and it's not even leading, it's taking it towards the right destination. And that's what it'll be. So when they say, will you also lead, tread the Dravidian path? There is no, it's a Dravidian terrain. Path has to be made by us. So that's what I think. You cannot erase it. And my intention is not to change that, but to change this corrupt alternatives that we have. That has to change. We must have, like Edward de Bono says, you cannot live a life with just yes and no. If there is no third alternative, invent it. He wrote a book called Yes, No, and Po. So he invented a word. So I think that's what I am.
It's a remarkably long-lasting hegemony. I remember 1967. After that, the so-called national parties never returned with a ghost of a chance of capturing power in Tamil Nadu. They always became B team, or B League or C League members. Congress, perhaps B League, BJP, D League, and so on in Tamil Nadu. It's a remarkably long innings for these parties, despite the splits and the various controversies.
Whether deserving is or not is another question. The thing is, I said they were the need of the hour. Then the need of the hour just became need, their need.
Yes.
And that was systemized, and now corruption is, there's a parallel government which runs only for corruption. Governance of corruption.
We'll come to that in a minute, but before that, when I was in school, high school and college, there's a very strong anti-Hindi movement. Unlike you, I can't speak Hindi, more than a couple of words. So what should be our approach to this, what is called linguistic, what shall we call it, linguistic chauvinism or linguistic exclusivism, yeah, whatever.
I never understood what people meant when they said horse sense. My vice president here is an expert on horses, so he'll enjoy this. Horses around the world, if you know one horse, you know any horse in the world. You'll be able to sit on it and communicate with it. We don't have that kind of a general communication. We have somehow declined the great offer which was there in front of us, and we have become chauvinists for language. It's a beautiful badge to wear, but the world will move more and more towards borderless, languageless communion. And I was part of the Hindi agitation. Someone told me that you'll get more holidays if you participate in it. That was the only reason I didn't even understand. But later, as I grew, I understood there was a reason behind it. The promise that we Indians were given when we became independent was slowly being denied by a monoculture, which even now the argument continues. When Anna said, I sort of rephrase my words and retreat, but the reason remains, he said. The reason for the agitation remains, but we take back the agitation.
So would you say that in your wide interactions with people in Tamil Nadu, you've been all over touring and interacting with them at a personal level, do you see any anti-Hindi sentiment, or is it just the resentment against what is seen as an unjust place given to Hindi, whereas not treating other national languages equally?
No,
What do you see?
no. Let me start with introspection rather than inspecting them.
Yeah.
I, like you, didn't know Hindi till I was 26, 27. I really didn't know. Yeah. Few North Indian friends used cuss words, so I knew the meaning of them.
Yeah.
That's all was my vocabulary in Hindi. And suddenly when an opportunity came about, I learned Hindi willingly. I think that will be the feeling of any Tamilian. His language, his mother tongue, will be Tamil, and he will seek to learn Chinese, Hindi, Marathi, French, what suits him, or what he takes a fancy to. That's how it should be. It cannot be forced on them.
How long will it take the chap sitting in Delhi to realize this?
From a second to a century.
Now, coming to one of the key subjects, corruption. Now, in Tamil Nadu, it's well understood. In Tamil Nadu, the term scientific corruption was used to describe the system of corruption in Tamil Nadu. It's an extremely systematized system with rules, rates are fixed, incentives are provided for various sectors. There's a distribution mechanism. You know, the lowest, with one strong leader, the lower rungs got a smaller share. Now it's more decentralized, I believe, and so on. And then there are sectors like mining, sand mining, beach sand mining, river sand mining, beach sand mining for minerals, granite quarrying. At every level, this system of what can only be called grand corruption,
Yes.
which is operative, and it is well recognized. There's a literature on it. Even I've written on it, and various others. Now, some scholars point out that side by side with this system of grand corruption in Tamil Nadu, for which Tamil Nadu has evolved a long way, you have a fairly efficient delivery mechanism, system of delivering welfare goods. For example, the public distribution system. For example, the Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, where everyone takes a cut, but that seems to facilitate wider reach. There's an incentive to enroll more people. This is serious literature findings. So show cause why corruption is bad. If corruption helps people, why is corruption intrinsically bad if it facilitates the delivery of welfare goods and services?
See, the instant gratification of corruption is so inviting.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to argue on the long-term basis. We think of Rome as a great place, but they say that during the time of Marius, when he was dictator, that the streets of Rome was compacted by garbage dumped by the citizens. People were walking in such stink. Europe used to stink, even after the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. And the perfumes became a necessity only because of that. That's how bad it was. But in the long term, they realized, like instant gratification, there's a sudden realization that comes with the Black Plague. Then it was a great equalizer. But I hope that we will not wait for that Black Plague, either economically or any which way that will hit us. We'll have to, that is what we'll have to imagine now, before it's too late. And that is what I called imagining the worst. Accidents waiting to happen can be averted. And why corruption is so convincing is because it's a quick fix. And the man who puts out his hand for the money for vote actually doesn't know that it's his money that is being recycled. How do you make him understand that? Even if you do, he says, yes, I do understand, but what do I do today? So you'll have to really show him the benefits. So next time when a politician goes to offer him money for votes, he'll put his price up and they won't be able to afford it because ultimately they are businessmen. They are not philanthropists, nor socially conscious people. They are here to loot. And if it's not worthwhile, they won't do it. They'll stop.
But there will always be some who will take the what's left over, 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees. But why is it that Tamil Nadu specializes in this, along with perhaps Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka? And some of the so-called backward Hindi-speaking states don't seem to face the same kind of problem, certainly not on this scale. Hard one.
No, not at all, because we are very intelligent, but we have diverted it to another. This great faculty has been diverted in the wrong direction. So the right and wrong balance is a check and balance we'll have to continuously keep making. And my mother used to say that when I have an idea which is very wicked or crooked, மூளை எப்படி ஆண்டாள் கொண்டையாட்டம் வளர்ந்துருக்கேம்பாங்க. That is a side word. So we have used that great intelligence, collective intelligence, to go towards this easy way. And no pain, no gain. We'll have to grit our teeth and go towards a direction. And we can. We taught them how to wash their hands, clean their clothes, not to litter. This can be done. And they've forgotten it all.
Is that one of your main activities?
Yes.
On the ground?
Before I publicly proclaimed that I'm coming into politics, these things we were attempting. But without seizing power, you cannot instill that as a rule of life. And I'm not talking about dictatorship, I'm just talking about a benevolent politician who should sit there. And that's why when my film fraternity wanted to stop the cricket match, I said, 20 people are playing a game which you don't like. Just walk another mile. 234 players are playing a very bad game inside the fort. Stop them. You're wasting your time on the wrong arena. I said. And that's what we should do. And that's why I am here.
Your political movement, the way you started, was somewhat unconventional. That you didn't call yourself the supremo, although you are the clearly unmistakable leader of that movement, because you're the one who brought them together. But what made you decide at that point of time, I will jump into this? It is an adventure for you.
No, as I told you, that jump was done even during Haram. Haram, the film.
Yeah.
Because it's a phenomenal risk to take. But let me tell you that that's one film which got me table profit. I did not do that film for that at all. I said, come what may, I will make this statement because there will be a time when you cannot make it.
Yes.
Because what is happening to our country has happened before. It's nothing new. It's a facsimile, and a bad smudged facsimile of what happened in Europe. And we all remember it, and we are letting it happen all over again. And we are players in it. Even in the corruption, we are talking because we are now talking about reimagining. Imagine that we all have a hand in that corruption because of not looking in that direction. In Tamil, I said before when, in an interview, I said, before when you say thief, thief, and run behind one criminal, he runs very fast to get away from the crowd. Today, he stops and said, did you call for me? I hear so many people screaming, what do you want? So that's the arrogance we have given him. He needn't be scared. The punitive measures that we have put in place are not punishments enough.
Yes.
I can shop my way out of it. Literally, go shopping.